Hello and welcome back, fellow Fix-It engineers, to our part 2 of the Beginner's Guide series. Now, in the first video guide, we covered all the basic tips you need in order to complete Hub Tier 0 in under an hour. So if you missed it, do check out the video because we do have plenty of tips there, 12 I do believe, which we won't be covering, at least not in detail, in this video because we have a whole lot more for you. So today I have a further 12 tips to help us build the space elevator in under another hour, so that we can unlock coal research in the next video, which we want to focus on so that we can get into full factory automation as soon as possible. Now, if you do find this video helpful, smash that like button so that other people in the same position of you can find these videos with ease. Also, if it's your first time here, do make sure you subscribe if you enjoy the Satisfactory game. We cover video guides every week, and we also have news and all that kind of thing, and we do a live stream. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's jump in. Tip number 1. Research to coal. Now, as we mentioned earlier, our number 1 goal is eventually to reach coal. And in order to do this, we are going to have to fast track part assembly, which is in tier 2 of the hub, then save up enough resources to build the grand space elevator. However, your very first goal should be actually to unlock Logistics 1, as this allows you to optimize your local nodes, which in turn will allow you to create more stuff using less structures and subsequently optimizing power efficiency. So, tip number 2 is power efficiency. Now, this is your biggest battle in the second hour of the game. You do not want to be constantly building temporary generators and feeding them constantly. Unfortunately, that being said, we are going to have to extend our generators by 1 to 2 extra generators minimum. But don't feel you need to keep adding generators if you're running low on power. Once you've gained all the necessary items from the technology advance and you've saved enough items for the space elevator, you can actually start switching off various parts of your factory in order to save energy. This is just going to reduce the load of power that you need and reduce the amount of time you're going about trying to develop fuel, which is our next point, fuel. So, as we will be feeding the generators, one priority should be creating biomass, as it's much more efficient than leaves or wood or petals. Now, last week I did mention that we need to collect the leaves as we're going between structures. However, this time it can actually be very beneficial if there's a little woodland area nearby to collect roots or wood scrap, as this takes the same amount of time to turn into biomass, but actually produces a huge amount more in comparison to leaves, which again allows you to spend more time elsewhere. Now, tip 4, consider grabbing and researching a single power slug. This was an excellent suggestion by Matthew Thomas, hope I've got your name right, from the last video. It will allow us to research power slugs in the MAM, and furthering that, allow us to unlock underclocking or overclocking in our factories. Now, in early game, underclocking is a lot more useful than overclocking, and this is because you can reduce a constructor's manufacturing process by up to 50%, but you're actually going to be using a lot less than 50% power, which means you can actually extend your constructors, extend your factory without having to have extra generators. Now, tip number 5, plan for what you need and keep it in mind, save it away. So, the space elevator requires 500 concrete, 250 iron plates, 400 iron rods and 1,500 copper wire. That sounds like a lot, and you're only going to need more than that for everything else. But that's a total of 15 slots worth of resources already. So what I recommend is we plan for it in advance and we start saving them away. So stick it in the container. Now tip number 6, expand your operation. Now if you want to have those items ready, we're going to need to expand our factory and start getting serious. Now I recommend developing at least 3 iron nodes, 2 for iron rods and 1 for iron plates, as well as developing at least 1 limestone node for concrete and going on potentially for 1 copper node. Now with the copper, don't worry about creating cables. Focus on the wire, because at this stage you can actually craft the cables yourself relatively quickly and you don't need that many. Also, don't worry about using containers just yet, as you'll be producing the resources pretty slowly. Just move it to your player or hub stash, like we mentioned, save it away, or use it for something else. Now I should also note that my expanded operation by the second hour is 3 iron nodes being mined, producing enough iron for 8 constructors more or less, although it's not 100% efficient. And I also have 1 limestone mine and a constructor, as well as a smelter for copper and 2 constructors for wire. However, I collect the copper by hand from a portable miner. And all of this is powered by the 2 hub generators and a further 2 generators, and with it I can build the space elevator with a total game time under 2 hours, which is pretty awesome. Tip number 7, automation is great, but it's not everything. So early game, I like automating everything. However, it may be worthwhile collecting mined resources from a portable miner, which I mentioned before. I do this with the copper, then run the copper over to my base where it is smelted and constructed. And this saves on the amount of energy that my base consumes. I also tend to set up a few extra constructors before I'm really developing anything, and then stick the primary resource, maybe it's copper or iron ingots, and then create something out of it. Maybe I create rods, or I create wire, or I add another constructor to it and create cables, just for a temporary measure. Now, tip number 8, start building off the ground or in large open spaces. Graz mentioned that this will stop you from deciding later on that it would be nice to drive vehicles in here, which is a fair point. And then he goes on to state that you'll have to demolish everything to do so. Which, yes, it's a great point, but just in general, building in large open spaces or above the ground stops you from getting obstructed by terrain that gets in the way of your factory buses. So that's the reason why I do that, but certainly he has a good point there. Now, tip number 9, don't wall yourself in unless you have a specific idea in mind, and probably that'll only be the case if you've actually played a run through of the game so far. Don't start building walls or other cosmetic items. You'll quickly find you want to expand and have to remove the said walls. So for now, let's just get you up and running, and once you've got a good input of resources, we'll do that. Also, late game, you'll have unlocked a few more options to choose from, so really don't worry about it right now. Number 10, don't get cozy. This isn't your home, despite you wanting it to be. So once we're a little further into the game and have more logistics researched and other technologies, we're pretty much going to demolish 90% of this base. So don't get precious with it. For now, the factory is a tool to get you from low-level Homo sapien to a fix-it clone with godlike potential. So don't worry about the base. If it needs to be brought down, we're going to bring it down. Just don't get precious about it. Tip number 11, use concrete to access areas which were unreachable prior. Now you can always delete them after, but it's a great way to quite easily reach power slugs or to cover small canyons. So use them where necessary. Tip number 12, gather your resources. Here, automation starts to become much more efficient than actually handcrafting, so you will spend a lot more time collecting the items from constructors than anything else, while we don't have containers. So put the excess resources either towards a goal or in the space elevator box like we mentioned in tip number 5, or use it to expand where necessary. So there you are, guys. Those are my 12 tips from the first hour to the second hour of game. And hopefully, like me, you'll be able to at least build the space elevator in under that second hour, or maybe slightly over. I'm doing this very much as quickly as I possibly can, so my results may be slightly different, but these tips will certainly give you a head start against any competition. Anyway guys, if you did find this helpful, please do drop a thumbs up like we mentioned, and if you want to keep up to date with our Satisfactory guides, because we have a lot of them, do make sure you drop a subscribe. Or drop a click on the subscribe. And don't forget, we do streams every Sunday, 5 PM GMT. And we also have Discord. Join us. The link is below, where we can help you out with any issues you may have, or we can just talk about general stuff or Satisfactory. Anyway guys, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Ciao for now.